and welcome to The Straw Hat with Rabbi David Wolkenfeld and Rabbinate Goldie Guy. We are the official podcast of Anshe Shalom B'nai Israel Congregation, an Orthodox synagogue in the Lakeview neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois.
We are recording Monday afternoon, May 9th. This is I think the first spring day we've had, the first spring week we've had in many, many months of dreary weather. So that's really exciting. And it's an exciting time for the shul. Less than a week from today, on Sunday morning, Dr. Erica Brown is speaking at the shul. She's a really noted author and scholar and highly regarded Jewish professional and educator, a real celebrity, I think one of them, right? And our little shul is going to get to host her. That's really, really special. And that's thanks to the generosity of Adam and Libby Smoller, who are sponsoring this shiur in memory of Adam's father, the late Charles Smoller. And this is something to look forward to. We're also trying to really make it as accessible for everyone. We have babysitting, and there's a kids program for younger kids. And just,
it is. And there's brunch. Free brunch, so register. You have to register for all of those things, the brunch and the kids programming, should that be applicable to you and your family.
You don't have to register for the shiur. You want to show up at 10:30 for the lecture, just show up at 10:30 and bring friends. If you have
but
a
if
child,
you want brunch,
come earlier, yes. Shachrit, 8:30, and then brunch, and then the shiur.
And Dr. Brown's topic is boredom is so interesting, a Jewish perspective about monotony during COVID.
Do you remember in the darkest days of COVID when you get very frustrated at me when I would say, I miss being lonely?
I'm still frustrated at you when you say that.
Okay, well, that was...
Well, whenever we talked, I think we might have even talked about it on the podcast.
It's very likely that
this was about the tension of what the different experiences of COVID and being kind of cut off from our normal broader networks of interaction. It was boredom was nuts. That's interesting.
Yeah, so I have no idea if that's what she's speaking about, but she's a really great speaker.
No, that's not what I've heard this lecture.
Oh, okay, good.
that's not what it's about. So she's not going to touch on like the social isolation piece. I don't think
she's very worth coming to hear. I first heard her speak. I was a freshman, summer after my freshman year of college. I did a learning program in Boston. She was working for the Boston Federation, I think, doing education stuff there. Cool. She did a workshop with us on how to give a Dvar Torah.
That's awesome.
What I remember from that presentation is don't end a Dvar Torah with Hebrew Menu, Amen. And I never have. And then, skip ahead a few years, I was a rabbinic intern at the Kentville Synagogue, which is the Brown family synagogue, and she was a really important, influential member of the congregation, and took me and Sarah aside and offered some really helpful advice on what it means to do education in the synagogue context. That's really really excited to.
I thought you ended Dvar Torah with Kaddish D'Rabbanan.
Please rise from Musaf. I like the. It's like the gymnast. They have to nail the ending. That's what I feel. Good.
That's what everyone remembers.
You do a chilling coda. You just want to leave them.
It's called a mic drop.
A mic drop, yeah. Except there's no mic, so you're just like the please rise for Musaf. And
I just stunned. Mime it.
You mime it? Okay.
Yeah. You haven't seen my sermons?
Not enough. I maybe I missed the hand gestures, but.
I'm speaking. It's my.
This Shabbat.
Yeah.
Is your last drasha at Anshe Shalom
in my formal role as
a shul employee.
Yes.
Right.
If you ever need a guest lecture,
that we can talk about. We can talk about that when you're no longer working for the shul. But as a shul employee, as an official drasha, that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Wow. That's any reflections as you prepare? I know you don't yet have a topic.
Yes.
Which is totally fine because it's only Monday. But what's any reflections on the experience of teaching Torah in that setting, in that venue at our shul?
Yeah, we've also talked about this a little, I think, about what it means to prep a sermon and is it my favorite type of teaching or not? And I don't know. I find it sort of difficult because of the lack of interaction with your audience. I like Torah to be created in the space between me and the learner when I'm in the position of teacher. So the space in between is really important, what gets put there. So here it's just me putting words out there. On the other hand, it's kind of powerful. It's really cool. It's just uninterrupted time of you addressing people, and it's here's the Torah that touched me this week and is moving my heart this week. And that's kind of awesome. The moments when people say to me, that was exactly what I needed to hear. That's when I find the drasha spot to be very, very powerful, because right, they weren't creating with you. It has. I mean, it's happened a couple times, and I'm like, oh,
that's really great.
Oh, so it works, right? You don't, as a teacher, I can't exactly feel out necessarily, especially in a large room, like how my words are going over.
It was an interactive shiur where you're all like working through a text, and you can
riveted,
say, do they have comments? Are they asking questions that indicate that they understand what you're trying to say? And you get that instant feedback. In the sermon, you don't get the instant feedback. You can look out across the room and you see them dozing off sometimes, or you see them nodding, like that helps, right?
Yes.
Definitely helps. Like the dozing off is not so great. I hope that doesn't happen to you. You don't have the same type of feedback, but it is a tremendous privilege to have 8 to 12 minutes of people's attention.
Sharing Torah from the heart. It's really a privilege. So that's
and it's been really great. I guess I can just say, as like someone who's heard you give Divrei Torah, it's been a real privilege to me, because I don't get to like one of the real I don't know what you call it, like the downsides of my professional role is I don't get to hear great sermons very often, hardly ever. And the last one you gave I loved, and it was just, I don't know, it was like I felt like
you.
I think I told you.
You did.
Okay,
it's very
good,
sweet.
right. But it was a great. It was like, it's like I miss this. I love like a good drasha. It's like it's terrific, and I never get to hear a good drasha anymore. And like so I really appreciated it, and so I'm grateful for that. And so I'll miss you. You're very in that role. It's a very you have a great talents for that, and it's it's appreciated in the congregation. So I'm eager to hear what topic you speaks to your heart this week, what you find in the Torah.
Come to shul, people.
Come to shul, people. Yeah, perennially good advice. So we had a very lengthy conversation this morning that we did not record. It got rather intense. We talked about the news of the week and abortion rights in question in the United States and how that resonated with us as religious Jews, with hearts and minds and bodies living in America. And it was I found a very powerful conversation, a compelling conversation, not a conversation for recording, not a conversation for a podcast. I thought it would be possible and appropriate to share just like one facet of this story, which I think is so important for our community to be aware of and to be really like active about, and that's the way in which the sort of legal regime under which abortion functions in the United States is very, very connected to assisted reproductive technology, especially IVF and related procedures, by which I don't know. I feel like half the shul is like came into the world that way. I don't know. Maybe it's exaggerating a little bit, but only a little bit. I see like the kids jumping up on the bima for Don Olam and giving them lollipops. And like some of them I know, like a lot of them I know, and some of them I don't know. But surely some of those as well are like here on this earth
because of reproductive
like the chesed of Hashem and the skill of fertility specialists, and that whole industry developed. I think in the 80s, right? So it's like well after Roe v. Wade was decided, and the industry just functions, with that presumption that, frozen embryos don't have legal status as people, and they can be, used for this procedure, and they can be discarded if it's for, at the whim of the parents, and that when mistakes happen, it's not, the stakes are, it's a financial, civil, kind of issue to be resolved, not anything criminal. I've spoken to physicians who are really worried about their ability to engage in this life-creating form of medicine with a radically changed legal regime, which it seems is coming in certain states. Yeah,
right, and it's just emphasizing the point that that kind of intervention is certainly supported by halacha, right? And especially in the kiyum of a mitzvah, right? That it's
fulfill a mitzvah. We saw the mitzvah of procreation of Piravu really emphasized in Daf Yomi, and the sort of associated mitzvah of L'Shevet Yetzirah, that God created the world for human habitation, and human beings, whether not they're Jewish and subject to mitzvah, are still supposed to be engaged in filling the world with people, or at least renewing the population of people in the world. And we really embrace that. It's sort of interesting. I'm not going to quote the person who said this to me because I might be remembering it wrong, and I remember who said it to me, but the quote is something like, Christians approach medical ethics from the perspective of Genesis, and Jews approach medical ethics from the perspective of Leviticus. And I think what they meant was that we're not invested really at all in questions of like I don't know, I think the Catholics get very focused on natural procreation, that there's like a natural way that was created by God in Gan Eden, and we should like replicate that in our family lives. And so they're opposed to contraception. They're opposed to most forms of assisted reproductive technologies because they feel that Genesis model of the narrative of Genesis is sort of somehow has this force, this normative force of how they're supposed to live. And we follow the mitzvah in the Torah that came at Har Sinai. And so we look to them for guidance. The Torah says we should try to have children. The Torah doesn't say, pretend you're Adam and Chava. It doesn't tell it. There's no mitzvah to do that. They certainly made choices we didn't make. They weren't Jewish, right? So we have other guidelines. I think, I don't know if it's true anymore, but at least at one point there was a statistic that every major religion on earth was opposed to cloning for purposes of human reproduction, except for Jews, who were not. I'm not saying cloning is a good idea, and I'm not endorsing it. I'm not saying but like there have been no postscript have condemned human cloning, and I think there have been some who said, yeah, look, if this is a way that's going to, for whatever circumstance and for whatever reason, this is going to be the best way for a Jewish person to fulfill the mitzvah of procreating, then every technology should be harnessed for that purpose. And
Right, and I think another offshoot of this we were talking about is IUD, right? Intrauterine devices that are contraceptives on the side of a woman, which are more halakhically condoned than even as there are places that condone. There are situations where male contraceptives are also permissible.
Correct.
But just for everyone to know. But in general, the more common
right,
approach.
The halachic consensus is to prefer methods of contraception that are done by the woman, that rather than barriers or condoms, for example, right? And although those two have been endorsed by postscript, are appropriate in certain circumstances, but in general, the more preferred ones are not that, and
that family planning is permissible for a number of reasons.
In the Gemara, we saw that also. Yeah,
right.
in the Gemara itself, up to modern times, endorses family planning for various reasons, and a lot of halachic scholars will endorse it. I mean, the IUD, from what I understand, it's only recommended if you are not planning on having children for like a period of time of around 5 years, but for people who are in that...
Again, I'm not an expert on this, so that's...
I'm not an expert either. Speak to your doctor, or if you have halachic questions, speak to us in private. Don't get halachic guidance from a podcast, but it's recommended mainly for people in that situation. They're not going to have a child for 5 years. Maybe they're done having children, or they're spacing a little bit longer, or whatever it might be. But for people for whom it works, it's like very helpful for Orthodox couples because it prevents NIDA status for 5 years, right? Which is I
think there are also non-hormonal options which are helpful for women who have side effects from hormonal birth control and
and we're saying this because there's legislation maybe on the books or pending or being discussed in Louisiana in a post-Roe legal regime, which could make IUD use impossible or place restrictions on it. Like the preferred method of birth control for a huge segment of the Orthodox community is going to be legally kind of restrained, and that's like I don't know. That's a.
I want to bring up something else, but we didn't discuss it before, so now
great. Okay, let's hear it. I'm ready.
No, I'm thinking about cases in which, this stuff that. Is this like a frame? Like I think about this a lot as a young woman, and as the social online community that I'm a part of talks a lot about these issues, even before this was on the docket and before the leaked Supreme Court opinion. And I don't know. I just now I'm seeing a lot of posts about it, and some of it, I make sure to research and not to take things at face value, obviously. But at sometimes, and there are cases when abortion is healthcare, like ectopic pregnancies, for example.
Yeah.
So that's also been on my mind a lot of just providing care for women is on is what's at stake.
Yeah, it's sort of stunning. It's sort of like it's incomprehensible.
And I know people, meaning like with all these things, I know people who've gone through IVF.
Yeah.
I know people who've had ectopic pregnancies that were dangerous and needed to be removed. And
I know a
like close people.
I know a couple whose first pregnancy was an ectopic pregnancy. So an abortion was absolutely necessary to save the life of this pregnant woman, and they have gone on to have many children. This is a very fertile Baruch Hashem family, but that would not have been possible if if God forbid, like this mother had died, from that first pregnancy, and it's like unfathomable that could happen in a country that has hospitals and operating rooms and
it's already a very high maternal death rate in the United States for a developed country.
And rising. It's higher than it was 20 years ago, which is very, very demoralizing and scary. That's
so. From all of this, it's like halacha has what to say, and it's in a lot of nuance on this topic, and it's not one-sided. It's certainly not black and white, and on either side that people might want to depict on social media or to inflame opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, I think people should realize it's not just about like if for ethical reasons you don't you don't feel that abortion is something that you would choose for yourself, for ethical reasons, which is for religious reasons, whatever. Yeah. They're actually people very much like you who share your values, whose lives are impacted by restrictions on abortion in cases where halacha requires it, right? If the mother's life is threatened in a very direct way sometimes, and as well as for assisted reproductive technology, which is again that is not subject to halakhic. There's a lucky debate about Jewish identity. Is it who determines if the offspring is Jewish? Is it the gestational mother or the egg donor? That's like
I think Rabbi Linzer just posted a tshuva about that.
Okay, that's like a big.
A short video tshuva.
Okay. Everyone has opinions on that. It's like a major subject of halachic controversy. But there is no, as far as I'm aware, mainstream halachic position on any segment of orthodoxy that is opposed to assisted reproductive technologies of the type that came into existence in the 80s and 90s and spread in recent years, and are just assuming, all the clinics as they operate, they're just assuming that a sort of a post Roe v. Wade legal regime, and they're going to have to rethink and look, hopefully reasonable legislation will protect them, but that until then, this is a very, very, I don't know, maybe it's a minor facet of this whole story, and there are big issues that affect millions and millions of people, but our little community, we also have
it's a small piece of the existential dread that this issue has dredged up for many women across the country.
Even a small piece of existential dread is still worth paying attention to.
That's what I'm not downplaying it.
And I think as a political stance, our community then has a question. Again, I don't want to presume that the listeners of the podcast are of one mind on abortion. I would just say, from one end of the spectrum, you have what was, I believe, the major Orthodox approach in the 80s into the 90s, even at the time that KC was decided in the early 92. The major Orthodox, Aguda, the OU, the major Orthodox organizations, their position was on behalf of, on the side of abortion rights, because if the state stays out of it, then Orthodox women can ask their poskim and do what and either have or not have abortions based on what their poskim tell them. And that they felt that was our narrow interest as a small religious minority. We want the right to practice our religion with as little government encumbrance as possible, and so the government stay out of it, and then we can impose our values on our community through education and persuasion, and we want Orthodox women to be able to ask their poskim and follow what their poskim say. And if there's if the legal regime is open, then they can do that. That was that's I think a less common position now, but I think that position had a lot of merit. I'd say the counter example. Let's say you take a case you take a place maybe less controversially, a place like India or China, where there's some data that suggests that abortion is used as a way to prevent girls from being born by families who want to have only one or two children and they want them to be boys, and so the abortion is a tool of really kind of replicating misogyny in a way that is both immoral and is also harmful.
It's harmful to society as a whole,
right? Right, for the survival of that society. So you can imagine we'll forgo our freedom so that society as a whole can regulate this really harmful practice, because
that's
other
not
people
what's happening. That's just not what's happening here.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. I just think that's the in the abstract. I'd say that would be the political question. The political question is: do we want to advocate for our rights to be as unfettered as possible, so that we can make the choices we think are right for ourselves, or are we willing to advocate for restrictions on our own rights if we see that right being misused by others around us? So I'm not saying that is the case here, but I think that would be the way to maybe frame the question. Maybe that's how people are seeing it. But it's a fraught question, and there's a lot more to be said and studied, and I'm sure. And you'll be hearing a lot from others, and maybe from us as well, about this in the coming weeks and the coming months. So it's not too early to get excited about Shavuot, the best holiday of to be in Lakeview. It's like Lakeview shines in Shavuot, maybe like no other day. Shavuot, usually there's no snow. That's really nice. Shavuot, the congregations come together and study Torah together and learn Torah together, hosted by Anshe Emet. It is such a thrilling, event. Hundreds, and I hope this year
it was really fun to teach at.
Yeah, well,
and it will be.
Yeah, even more so. Even more so. It really each year.
There'll be better food this year.
Better food this year. More people, I hope.
More food, more people.
Yeah, it's just
more people, more food. Priorities.
It's really it's exhilarating to be together with so many other people who don't necessarily know from your everyday life. They're not people just from your little corner of the Jewish community whom you see regularly, and you get to learn with them and learn from them and teach. And it's I just love it to have a big audience. I usually don't.
New students, new voices in the room,
new response. Yeah. So I want to just set your plans now. Arrange for childcare, maybe. Just try to spend the night at
10 p.m. on Emet.
Starting at 10 p.m., going through till 4, and then we walk back to Anshe Shalom, which is a fun. It's like a Saturday night, Sunday morning. So we'll be. I guess the bars will be closing as we leave Anshe Emet to walk back to our shul. We have a nice, efficient. Early morning shachar. Then we have a regular tefillah at the regular time, and then we are in mid planning of a kiddush barbecue on the second day of Shavuot. We have
on the first day we're gonna have a kids tikkun, a kids learning program with parallel tracks for kids from ages 3 to 6, and then from 2nd grade to 5th grade. And then we'll have our infamous, famous, exciting, fun happy hour at Windy City. Enjoying our dairy desserts, and then playing together as a community, enjoying hopefully good weather, Torah, good weather, and ice cream. What's better? And then on the second day,
a barbecue for those who find this, who get tired of milchigs. We're gonna have a barbecue.
I am not tired of milchigs.
I'm allergic to red meat. I will not go into eating, but it should be fun.
There will also be vegetarian food at the barbecue.
Okay. It's going to be one of the nice things about Yantif is that you can transfer fire. So we have a pilot light in the shul kitchen, so we can use the pilot light to light a candle. We use the candle to ignite a barbecue, and then we can grill. And that is really it's a nice way to take advantage. Like the Torah said, that you're supposed to have, rejoice on the holidays, and the Torah relaxed some of the restrictions that exist on Shabbos. So I think this is we're taking advantage of the Torah's permission to cook on Yantif, and should be really a nice feast. And but with a lot of people. So please,
lots of people. We'll have dessert together also, and then in the afternoon, we're gonna have our women's Shavuot celebration, which will be really nice. We'll have Rabbanit Walkenfeld teaching.
Oh, fun.
You knew this.
I did know that. She's in our house. She's teaching at...
It's going to be at shul. Okay. It's shul. We're going to have hopefully a women's tefillah mincha and a laning of root and Rabbanit Walkenfeld teaching. She's going to teach on Torah technologies. What did we receive on Shavuot?
Ah, that's nice.
You've heard that shir?
I've not heard the shir. I've read. I've read part of the source sheet, so it's really it's an interesting Gemara that she's going to talk about, and it's a topic that she's been focused on for a while. So.
Yeah, so it's going to be a packed, nice Shavuot full of learning and food and community.
Yeah, so make your plans to join us for Shavuot. Don't go visit family. Bring your family here for Shavuot. It should be a really great time.
And of course, all of our groups,
And the groups as normal. Yes, yes. Thank you so much for listening to the Straw Hat Podcast. Please send us your feedback or ask any questions, and look forward to seeing you around shul.